Okay, so welcome. My name is Neil McGurk. I'm the Division Disaster Director for Texas. Also, I am the division support for our Division Response Management Team. And so today I'm going to be giving you guys just a little bit of an overview of the Division Response Management Team, what the team is, who's on it, what the purpose is, and really how the intention is for the Division Response Management Team to integrate into local regions during large-scale responses. So as we begin, I just want to let you know and ask that if everyone will please mute your phones, and if you have to take another call, please do not place the call on hold, or we will have the opportunity to listen to whatever wonderful hold music that your phone service provides. Also, if you do have questions, you can ask them during the presentation, or you can ask them during the chat feature. However, do know that I am recording the session, so whatever question that you ask will also pop up and will be part of the recording. So just make sure you're aware of that. So either way you want to ask questions, either just speak up as it comes to it during the presentation, or ask it during the chat feature. I'll be glad to answer any questions as they come up. So this presentation is not going to last us too long, but again, I'm going to get us into an overview of the DRMT, talk to you guys about some of the functions of each of the positions on the DRMT, and then really explain who has been selected for the team. So we'll go ahead and get started. So move the chat box down here. So the DRMT is a national-based structure. I mean, it's consistent across all 7 divisions, and it's really meant to be a division-based disaster management team that can, during times of a large-scale disaster, level 3, 4, 5, and upwards, this division response management team can either augment leadership at the local level on an operation if it's needed, or they can assume direct operational control for an operation. And I'm going to talk to you about both of those types of situations, when the DRMT would actually augment regional leadership, or when they would need to come in and assume operational control for an operation. I will tell you that the DRMT, just like everything else within the re-engineering process, is designed with the intention that to allow for local individuals of the territories of the regions to manage responses if at all possible. That is the intention at the division level. That is the intention at the national level. And so the DRMT will be deployed in either in a partial activation or a full activation when it is needed. So when there are not local individuals both capable and available to run an operation based on whatever size it happens to be. So I'm going to talk to you and walk you through a little bit of those opportunities and examples of when that will occur. But I just want to very, very clearly up front state that the expectation is that regional and territory leadership individuals will run operations if at all possible. So just want to make sure that that's very clear. So it's also important that to note is that, again, as I mentioned, that this is sort of a national construct, but it's a division run for our division. But every division has at least three division response management teams. And so it's the same consistent structure across all divisions across the country that allows us to really have that scale-up support necessary as we have large relief operations to basically assume those leadership roles. So it's consistent amongst all divisions. So this is not something unique that the Southwest and Rocky Mountains Division is doing. So let me first take you into, and some of this is going to look familiar. We've all taken the DRO in-service class, but this is really the Division Response Management Team. It's the command and general staff. And so you've got your director, your deputy director, your external relations AD. It's part of your command staff. And then your general staff are those individuals in finance, logistics, operations, and planning. So everything that you learned in the DRO in-service class is, again, going to translate into the division response management teams. And again, this team is designed to augment regional leadership or to sort of assume direct command of an operation when there are not individuals in the local level that are either that have that capability to fulfill those roles, or they don't have the availability. They're out of town, they're on vacation, whatever, and they're not available to fill those roles. Again, I'm going to reiterate many times through this presentation, the intention for the DRMT is to only deploy into those areas when there are not capable people people who have that kind of experience necessary to run whatever size and scope and nature of the operation is within the local level. Let me check to see if there's any questions. And again, if you have any questions, ask them throughout the presentation or ask them through the chat feature. So before we get into some of the activation protocols of the DRMTs, I'm going to walk you through basically some of the positions. Again, you've seen some of this in the DRO in-service class, but I think it's important to keep reiterating these points of what the DRMT and the Command and General Staff is responsible for. So obviously your director and your deputy director are responsible for assuming overall direct leadership of an operation from all components, and that really goes into the entire cycle: preparedness, response, and recovery. And then we go down to external relations. The only AD position in the sort of the command staff is external relations. And again, major responsibilities are to again support the direct services activities. Everyone on an operation is either working within direct services, mass care, client services, health, mental health, or they are supporting those direct service activities, because everything we do on an operation is focused on the client. And so they are responsible for providing oversight and leadership to the external relations activities. And some of the things, again, they're working with all of those individuals to ensure consistency in our messaging, so that we're communicating with our partners about what we're doing the same way that we're talking to our donors, and we're saying the same messages to the general public. So we're looking at all of those constituent groups and providing them with the same message. And this is really, again, the responsibility for the AD of external relations to really assume that overall scope and vantage point to really have oversight on each one of those 4 external relations activities to ensure that they're being administered in a consistent fashion. Again, the external relations activity, the assistant director is not going to be out there talking to the media or talking to donors or sitting in an EOC or things of that nature. They are administering these entire activities and ensuring there's a consistency amongst all of them and coordination amongst all of them. Another key important aspect of external relations that the DRMT, as well as any leadership team, will be doing will be to ensure that external relations is engaging with logistics, with operations, with other activities within the general staff to ensure that we're effectively integrating our partners, government partners, as well as donors, as well as the media into those various aspects where appropriate in those programs, in those activities. So again, operations, we go down here, and again, the AD for operations is responsible for coordinating all operational tactical information on that operation. They're also working on work assignments and ensuring that we've got our districts taken care of, our functional leads taken care of, and this is really providing oversight and support and supervision on every activity that has direct interaction with clients: shelter, feeding, client casework, recovery, all of those types of activities. And then logistics is all the people and resources, the human resources, the material resources, as well as technology. And again, providing all of the oversight to ensure that we're utilizing our resources, both human and material, most efficiently and most effectively. And then planning. Planning is this function that we're really that is really being expanded, more so than any other function in our current new concept of operations. Planning is really responsible for all things information and situational awareness and forward thinking. So while the planning section is responsible for developing plans, for forward thinking, both what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen in 3 days, what's going to happen in 2 weeks, a month down the road on this operation. But the important thing to know about planning is they're not making those decisions about where we're going to open up shelters in a week, or what kind of bulk routes we're going to do, or where we're going to need to open a warehouse. They're not making those decisions. What they're doing is ensuring that the operation is focused on making those decisions, and then they're documenting those decisions and ensuring that everyone is all working off of the same game plan. And that game plan is both the service delivery plan as well as the incident action plan. And then finance major responsibilities, again, review and monitoring overall finance processes, making sure that we are safeguarding the operation from financial risk. to ensure we have controls in place. So the fiscal controls that we use on a regular basis in our client assistance system, we've got those same fiscal controls that need to be monitored both when we're doing client casework on a relief operation as well as bulk distribution on a relief operation, and all those types of things where we have assets. We have to ensure we have proper controls in place to safeguard the operation. And that's one of the aspects that finance does, in addition to contributing to assisting with the financial aspects of the service delivery plan, the budget for the operation, and ensuring that we're staying within that budget and operation. And so all of these roles are both filled by leadership individuals at the local level when you stand up a relief operation. But again, if you have shortfalls within your leadership individuals on a large operation, this is where the DRMT will come into play. And we have 3 DRMTs now, Division Response Management Teams, that are now built and operational within the division that can then either deploy in partially and augment a local operation, or they can deploy in together as an entire team. And I'm going to walk you through some of those components of how that occurs right now. And again, any questions you guys have, either ask them or put them through the chat feature. So talk a little about DRMT activation and integration. And I'll tell you, before I jump into this, I want to we had a DRMT orientation. We brought all of our DRMT members together in Oklahoma City at the end of June. And one of the major points that we talked about was the need for the DRMT and the members to understand that the role of the DRMT is supportive, that we're there to support the activities in the region and the activities in the territory. And so I really want to ensure that there's not a perception that this DRMT is coming in to take over an operation. No, they're there to support the efforts that are going on at the local level, to support the territory, support the regions, and if needed, augment regional leadership to help fill gaps in capacity, as well as then on those larger scale operations, multi-region events, statewide events, to really deploy in and basically assume overall operational leadership on those larger operations. And we'll talk about that here in just a moment. So we'll talk about the general process for level 3 and above operations. These are operations that are going to typically cost more than $50,000. The first thing that happens in any disaster, the disaster is going to occur and the territory is going to initiate a response. All disasters are local disasters, and all disaster responses have to begin at the territory level. So I've said this many times before during all of our DRO in-service trainings, that the success of the operation has to start at the local level. We've got to get out the gate quickly and get that operation initiated, focusing on those 5 key activities. And then so the first of this process of the DRMT activation is your disaster is going to occur, your territory is going to initiate the response. Then the region has to sort of work to determine and communicate the size of the disaster, the scope of the disaster, and really importantly, the ability for the region to staff those command and general staff positions with territorial regional leadership individuals. Now I'll say it, the ultimate goal is to build the kind of capacity where you have the capacity within your territories and your regions to fill your director role, your AD for planning, all of your roles on your command and general staff. The goal is to fill those positions so that we don't have to deploy in leadership members. But we all know that all regions and territories are not created equal, and so we've got different levels of capacity in different parts of different regions and different territories, all those types of things. So when that disaster happens, this is where the region really has to determine if they've got the ability and the capability to basically staff those command and general staff positions from within that territory or from within the region. And we all know that will also depend upon the complexity of the event and the type of the event. So you may have an individual that you feel is capable of serving as an AD for operations on, let's say, a medium-sized tornado response. But let's say you've got a level 4, level 5 flood response or something like that. While they have that ability, they've done the AD for operations, that role for that large of operation may be somewhat outside of their scope, and they need a little bit more training on that in that activity before they can assume that kind of leadership role. And that's really that conversation that will occur at this time. So the region's going to determine how the region's been impacted, and then what the capacity is for the region to really assume and staff with those command and general staff positions. And another important aspect is that the RDPO is going to collaborate with the division on the makeup of the team and any shortfalls. And I can tell this, give you some really clear examples. In the past, the way this has happened, we've had wildfires, tornadoes, and the RDPO is going to have that conversation with the division and basically say, we know this is a level 3 or a potentially level 4 operation, but we have people, we've got, these names of these people that can fulfill and have the ability to fulfill those roles and have the experience, and they'd be great in those roles. And if they're available, if they have the time commitment to serve in those roles, they're going to be allowed to serve in those roles. Because again, the intention is to have our local regions staff as many positions as possible if they have that capability and that availability. Now, I do want to mention there is one exception to this, and this really falls within that finance activity. The AD for finance is a specialized role that on level 2, on operations above a level 2, will be filled by our national finance team. And so they really have, they've got the ability, because there are really specialized activities going on within that finance section, to basically assign individuals into that role. And now, messages that have come out recently is that the finance, national finance team has been looking for and engaging volunteers at the local level that have interest in finance, so they can get them trained up and ready to assume some of those finance AD positions, so that when a disaster does occur, if you've got people that are capable and that are already assigned and a part of that finance team within your region, that if they're available and capable, then the finance team can place them into that AD for finance role. So that's really one of the asterisks that I will mention about how that role is placed, because that is, on operations above a level 2, the AD for finance position is going to be placed by the national finance team. The other positions, your director, your logistics, external relations, planning, and operations, that will happen collaboratively between the RDPO and the division to sort of make determination of who's going to fill that role based on, again, their capability and their availability. And I'm going to give you an example for a single or regional event. I'm going to tell you about some examples, sort of give an example for a single region event versus a multi-region event. So if one region is impacted, again, the region is going to determine if they have the leadership staff capable and available to fill the command and general staff positions. And if they have a few shortfalls, so let's say they've got somebody who can be the director, but they've got somebody who can be the operations AD, but they don't have anyone that could be the planning AD or the logistics AD. And again, finance is going to be filled by the national finance team. They'll assign individuals into that, so we'll leave that off to the side. But you've got shortfalls within your logistics and planning. So this is where that conversation between the RDPO and the division is going to occur, and this is where a decision will be made to do a partial DRMT activation. So the partial means that you have someone to fill your AD for operations role, you have someone to fill your director role, but we're going to send in 2 members from the DRMT to fill your planning role and your logistics role. So again, the positions that cannot be filled, this is where the DRMT can do a partial deployment to basically fill those roles with the DRMT members. And this is also important. When we deploy those DRMT members out, this is, again, we want to ensure that this is a part of that conversation that will occur between the RDPO and the division to say, okay, you've got these shortfalls. We're going to deploy out an AD for logistics and an AD for planning. But what we would like for you to do is to identify individuals to be mentored into those roles. So let's say you had someone that you have identified someone to be the AD for logistics. They just don't quite have that much enough experience to be able to basically assume control of logistics during an operation of this size and magnitude. So if you can identify an individual that can be mentored in that position, then that DRMT member that's deploying in can work with that local person to really mentor and engage them. So the next time you have a disaster, that person will be able to assume and has the experience and availability to assume that position. And so this is one of the key things that we talked about during our DRMT orientation, was really the strong need for the DRMT to mentor individuals. So again, we're never going to build the kind of capacity that we need to in our local areas if we don't provide mentoring opportunities. And this is one of the key components and key objectives of the DRMT, is that when the DRMT deploys into an area, they are being assigned and tied into local leadership individuals, both volunteers and paid staff, to mentor them into those roles. So when the next time a disaster happens, that region will be more capable of assuming more leadership roles and not having to deploy in that DRMT into that area. So again, that's a real important aspect. I want to make that very clear. And this really goes into the real desire and intention for the assumption to be made, for the assumption not to be made that this team is coming in to take over an operation. You know, we've had that. That has been a general persistent thought process that's happened around the organization. When we send in a leadership team, they're feeling that national or the state or the division is coming to take over. We're really trying to build a culture within the DRMT that's more engagement, integration, and mentoring, so that the DRMT, while leading those activities, is providing engagement opportunities for local staff, both volunteer and paid staff, to be engaged and to learn an operation so that the DRMT will not have to deploy the next time. The intention here is that the more the goal is to deploy the DRMT as infrequently as possible. So you got to grow people in local areas so they can assume those kind of positions, be mentored when they need to be, so that the next time around you've got people capable and available, ready to go. Any questions so far? Okay, move on to a multi-region event. Now, the multi-regions event, when we have a disaster that crosses regional boundaries, this is going to be somewhat different. It's going to be based on the fact that you've got multiple regions that are going to be impacted. And so in this situation, the DRMT is typically going to deploy together as a team and will assume operational command for the DRO as a whole. So let's say, you know, and I'll use Texas as an example. Let's say we have a flood that's occurring both in Houston and in Austin. You've got, you know, a big response going on in Austin. You've got a big response going on in Houston. Obviously, we have to set up one relief operation structure. Then this is where the DRMT will deploy in and basically serve as that overall command structure for that entire operation. And the reason why in that circumstance is because the regional leadership, both in Austin and in Houston, managing their own flood responses, will then work within the district model. So you'll have a district in Austin and a district in Houston managing the direct services activities that will then report up and be coordinated by the individuals on the DRMT at a multi-region level. So in this circumstance, again, we want the DRMT to be able to engage and find individuals to mentor. But on multi-region operations, because there's going to be more activity that will be occurring in individual districts, those mentoring opportunities may be somewhat limited. But I will tell you this, if there are individuals that are available to be mentored, especially on these multi-region events, then the DRMT will engage and mentor those individuals. And this is, again, when we're talking about mentoring, this is where, as you guys are going to be developing your DRCFs for FY15, this is an important aspect where to identify those individuals on your leadership capacity roster, to identify those individuals that you need to be mentored, so that when a disaster happens, you have that list ready to go, and you can get that information to the division, to the DRMT, to try to assign those individuals to those leadership roles to be mentored in those positions. So some additional DRMT information. We recruited, the DRMT information was sent out widely throughout the division throughout May and June. The goal for this was to be as transparent as possible about the application process. And really what we looked for during the formal interview and selection process, we were looking more for leadership qualities within individuals. We were looking for individuals that would know how to build a team, that would work with people to build a team, to minimize that perception that, oh, the DRMT is coming in here and taking over, and maximize the ability for that DRMT to come in and, while assisting and coordinating and managing response, also build up and mentor and engage local leadership individuals at that level. So that's really what we looked for. And so I'll tell you, there were quite a few applicants, great applicants, and now we had 3 teams to fill and a finite number of positions and seven positions on each team, and so we could not accept everyone on the team. But I just want to let you know that the process for how we determined the DRMT was really based on those leadership capabilities to ensure that we are building the right kind of team to effectively engage and integrate into a region when a disaster does occur. So there's, again, a total of 3 DRMTs have been formed in the Swarm Division, and we held that DRMT orientation in Oklahoma City in late June. And again, the focus on the DRMT was not a lot of, we had a lot of open-ended conversations. The orientation was very basic. We talked about how we're going to function and things like that. But the conversations were primarily focused on integration, mentoring. How can we ensure that we're effectively going to be engaging within regions to help build capacity and engage leadership volunteers and train them so that when the disaster happens again, they're capable and ready to respond. So now I'm going to take you through our 3 division response management teams and sort of introduce you to our team members. And I will say that following this, in the next couple of days, you guys are going to be receiving a full roster with a bio of each of our DRMT members. And one of the great things about our DRMT is the vast majority of the members in the team are members from within the Swarm Division, and they're from within regions. And so each of the individuals that you see on the DRMT are engaged at a regional level. They know what it's like to work at a territory at a regional level on a response. And so this is, again, important. So as those teams deploy into an area, they know what it's like to be on the receiving end of a leadership team coming in, and they know how to properly engage so that there is a perception of integration and not just taking over. Again, very, very important distinction that we were trying to build within the DRMT. So our first team that I'll introduce is the director is Joe Flint. Joe Flint is from the Gulf Coast region. The deputy director is Stephen Meisner. He is from the Gulf Coast region. The AD for External Relations is Logan Sissom from Utah. The operations is Pat Chappell from Colorado. Spencer Pollock is our AD for Information and Planning on Team 1, and he is from the Colorado-Wyoming region. Our AD for Logistics is L.V. Spencer. He is from the Texas Gulf Coast region. He is also our division logistics lead. And then our AD for Finance is from the National Finance team, Candy Crocker. Our DRMT Team 2 is, the director is Vig Henkin from Arizona. JC from Colorado. We've got an open position in AD for External Relations. Carrie Norton on operations is from Central and Western Oklahoma. AD for operations for information and planning is Matt Brown from the North Texas region. Jody Carter in logistics is from Arkansas, and Mary Burns is from Oklahoma and is part of the national finance team. Our team 3 is James Tittle from Central and Western Oklahoma. I am the deputy director on the 3rd team. Our external relations AD is Amber Savage from the Colorado-Wyoming region. Josh Jackson in operations is from the Central Texas region. And Jason Scott, information and planning, is from Arkansas. Cindy Schenk is from the Colorado-Wyoming region. And then Svetlana is the AD for finance, as part of the national finance team. So again, the intention of this was to build the team from individuals that primarily work within regions. Volunteers and paid staff members that have that regional and territory knowledge so they can effectively integrate. And so these are members of our own teams that will be deploying in to support the regions. Again, everything that reengineering is focused on now is focused on putting the resources and the knowledge into the hands of the territories and the regions level. And these teams are there to support you. So when they do deploy into an area, if they deploy into an area, then they will be there to help not only coordinate and run an operation if there is a need for them to do that, but also to mentor individuals, to leave the region stronger and leave your leadership members stronger following a disaster. So some team on-call schedules. We've got team 1 will be on call right now. We assumed our on-call schedule in July. Team number 1 will be July, October, January, and April, then followed by the months that are represented by team 2, and then team 3. And each team is on call for 1 month at a time. And the intention is that as soon as a DRMT deployment activation comes through, the deployed members, the activated members of that team, whether it's a partial deployment or a full deployment, have to be ready to go and traveling within 24 hours. And they go in and will assume and basically be there for a standard deployment of approximately 14 days or whatever really they have the availability to do, but up towards a standard deployment. So I am the DRMT support point of contact. So if you have any questions as things come up, here's my contact information. You can shoot me an email. You can give me a call if you've got any questions. Again, this is still a new process. This is a new process within the national organization. Within the Swarm Division, we have not had a DRMT deployment yet. Obviously, that could change tomorrow whenever a large-scale disaster occurs. But I do ask that everyone's patience as we still work out some of the protocols and procedures that go along with the DRMT. But just know that the DRMT is being trained to integrate and to mentor leadership individuals at the local level to effectively help build capacity while responding to a disaster. So at this time, I'm going to open it up to any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, anything that anyone wants to mention. Now is an opportunity.
Neil, it's Matt. Do you want to mention the division capability work groups?
That will be for another time. The DRMT is sort of a response base. It's an operational based team. We've got our capability work groups, which is another component of sort of our division leadership teams, which is focused more on blue sky operations. And I'm responsible for sort of building and supporting the DRMTs. Julia Daly, the State Relations Director for Texas, is responsible for supporting the Blue Sky Division capability work groups. And so the capability work groups are the application and review process for getting members onto those teams is occurring now. So we're currently accepting applications that have to go up through your RDPO. And if you have any other questions about that, reach out to Julia Daly. And someone did ask a question, will this be available on YouTube? Yes, I'm recording this, and I should. We've had some issues in the past with sort of the rendering of these videos. I think that issue has been solved, and so I anticipate, if all goes well, to get this out in a link to you guys within the hour. We've solved some of those rendering problems. So any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.